I'm going to talk about remixing. And remixing, I'm going to try and talk a bit about why the textbook of the future is the textbook with remixing. If you go back, very far back, the oldest educational tool is recitation from memory, and that's still done today. There are eidetic people. The second one is the well-known writing on the wall. And then textbooks themselves, written textbooks, go back almost 6,000, 7,000 years. But until about 1400, 1450, these were things that were written by hand, which means that copying something was much more work than writing it. Gutenberg's invention was not so much movable type, that had already been done in China, but it was the press itself that let you make multiple copies of the same thing in a fairly short amount of time. By 1600s or so, there were textbooks. The McGuffey, the New England Primer is one of them. And of course, we have our textbooks today, like this one here. Now, if you look at that textbook, what's wrong with it? Well, it's too damn heavy. Some of them weigh 3-4 pounds. But if you ask faculty what they did with that textbook, mostly we skipped sections. We teach in a different order. We replace some content with our own material. All these things here, and I'll tell you about them. Students hate them, not only faculty. So we come to this issue of copyright. What can you copy? What's fair use? There's a very interesting article by Pierre Laval who points out that the point of copyright isn't ownership. The point of copyright is increasing knowledge, providing an impetus, a reason why people will want to increase the knowledge of others. Well, we're teachers. We were stuck in the press making copies, multiple copies of the same book, till computers really came around. And this idea of an open copyright was introduced. About 1976, this idea of a copy left, something that, yes, I own this, but I give you permission to copy it. And you can copy it and you can change it. And this has gone through various iterations until today. We're pretty much all agreed that Creative Commons is the most useful way of doing this. I'd like to point out that open copyright, in a sense, is natural for academics. We write things for journals. We provide the journal right now we provide them the PDF or the LaTeX, and we don't get any money for it. Sometimes we even pay money for it. So open copyright's natural for academics, as long as there's acknowledgement. And that's what Creative Commons does for you. It lets you give somebody some materials as long as they acknowledge that it's your intellectual property. Creative Commons is not ownership. Creative Commons is a license to use somebody else's property. So how do we use remixing to break the golden handcuffs, these things that we don't like about 4-pound printed textbooks? Well, we've gone through this morning about how to create a new project on the conductor. We've got to the point where we've created the project, and we're going to look at remixing now. One thing I'd like to encourage everybody to do is, in the discussion thread of your project, tell us who the author is and what the institution is. We'll need this when we publish it. Okay, so we've created this empty frame, and the remixer lets us fill it. So we have to go through the process of thinking, what do we need? Does something exist in LibreText? Does something similar exist in LibreText? Does something similar exist outside the LibreText library? If it does it have an open license? If not, we're going to have to find some way of composing it. We can either harvest the open license material, or we can transform it into something that is open license, and then we can remix. This is the center. Once we've remixed it, we want to edit it. But when we edit it, we may need to remix again. We may want to add something new. We can go through this cycle until finally we publish the book. Okay. So where to start? This is all part of remixing to me. Find a textbook you like. Look at the table of contents. Are there things you won't use? Are there things that are missing? If you want to, for teaching your course, if something identical exists in LibreText, you can use the remixer to skip those sections you're not going to use, or to teach them in a different order. And the same thing with something similar, except something similar, you're going to have to do more editing. Justin went through this earlier today. The next step is, if you don't have the material in LibreText, you're going to have to replace some of the content from other sources. Does it have an open license? Well, how do you find things that you want to use that have open licenses that aren't in LibreText? Justin went through this, but I want to show you one trick that I use. If I use a search engine, I insert CC_BY or CC0 into the search string. This picks up everything that has Creative Commons licenses. There are also OER finders, OER Commons, the Open Textbook Library, the Mason OER Meta Finder, and Merlot. Okay. So now we're in the situation where we're looking for something outside the library. We're going to replace content, correct inaccuracies, revise edited materials, and other things. Okay. So we want to build a remixing map. This is my favorite remixing map. This idea of this remixing map is I am able then to go somewhere on the bookshelves, to a book, to an area, to a book, and I'm going to remix with this chapter or even these sources in the page. So that means I have a directory which shows me what exactly I'm going to remix, and it goes very fast. If I have something like this for a book, it takes about 15 minutes to build a remixing book. Justin showed you this before. Some people just have chapters. Other people break it out into chapters and pages. One of the differences with a online text is you want to have fairly short pages, fairly short chapters. Okay. So we're ready now to go to the remixer. And this is what the remixer looks like. The title will be automatically filled in. There is a tutorial. There is auto numbering, which means when you move something, it renumbers. There are options associated with that order numbering. Do you want each chapter to have chapter 1, or do you just want 1:? When you're remixing, nothing so wonderful as spending an hour setting up a remixing map and then it disappears for whatever reason. You can save the map. You're not saving the book, you're saving the map. And then later you can come back and you can load the map that you saved and save the work. Okay. So we're going to do some remixing demos. We're going to remix from a single LibreText with reordering pages and eliminating chapters. We're going to remix from multiple LibreTexts. We're going to remix with new original pages. And we're going to do a remix where we set up basically a frame that we're going to insert materials into or that are going to be harvested. So hopefully this now works. So here's our demo book. Here are the contents. There's nothing in it. If I look here, you see there's nothing. If I edited this, there's just this template that generates the table of contents for this chapter. So I'm going to go back here. One way to get to the remixer is on the blue bar on the Tools menu. You can go directly to the OER remixer. There are some other useful things here. You can generate a page citation, an attribution. You can get source and other things. Okay, but I'm going to come back to the conductor. And I'm going to go to the remixer. Notice that the name of the book has been filled in. Oh, yes. By the way, if you're not logged into the library that you're going to make your remix from, this will not be black. If this isn't black, anything you do will not be saved. You can show the tutorial. We're working on improving this. And here's a getting started. I'm not so much. We'll come back to these later. So this was a book I was building in the business library. So let's go in the bookshelves. Okay, management. Let's take a look at this book here. Now, let's say that I'm going to take this first chapter here, but I want to see what is on this page. So I can just come over here and I can hit the symbol, and there's that page. I can say, yeah, I like that. That's fine. If I had done this correctly, I would already have this in my remixing map. I can fold that up. So I can bring this over here. Now I'm not gonna, this is just this empty chapter. I'm just going to get rid of it turned red. And let's say I want the second one too. I'm not going to build the entire book out here because it takes some time to remix, to do the actual remixing. There are already 12 pages here and 5 pages there. So let's say I didn't want the glossary because I'm going to have a rollover glossary. So I can get rid of that. Okay. And let's say I wanted to move this up here. Notice that everything renumbered. This is now a 2-week course. There are only 2 chapters. I'm ready to actually remix this. I go to Save to Server. I'm going to add 18 pages. It actually will tell you which ones I'm going to add. I've never used this, but okay. Save to Server again. Let me get my drink while I wait for this to go through. It now says your text will be available here. Different libraries have slightly different formatting down here, but you just click on your new text is available here. Remember, this was the book. I've now remixed the book. There's the book. We'll get into this more later, but let's take a look at a page here. This page looks like text. But if I edit it, and I have the right to edit it because this is my book, it just says, we took this from over here. For those of you who read HTML, it's fairly clear. It just tells you this is where it came from. This is where you go to get the contents to display. I could go here just by clicking on it. I'm now in the OpenStax book that's on the bookshelves. So the question is, and we'll get, as I said, we'll get into this much more in what follows about editing. If I click on that little fork symbol, and the other way to do that is from the options menu. And now if I look at it, it's actual HTML. That I can edit. Okay. And if you will, let me go back here. And that will be reflected here. Okay. So I've used the remixer to remix a book. And I can now edit this book. Or if I'm ready, if I say I don't need any more editing, because all I'm doing is I'm taking the first two chapters of that book that was on the bookshelf, and I'm making that the contents of my book, and I want to publish it so my students can use it. And all you do is you go request to publish. But before you do that, since I'm doing most of the publishing, please tell me who the authors are going to be named as and the institution. We have people that are teaching at 3 places. If I just go look up their account, I can't tell that it was really from this other place. Okay. So this is I think, a good place to start for questions about simple remixing, which I will have to put my earpiece in. Okay. Are there any questions? Hello? Okay. No questions.
Not immediately. Maybe maybe as we go, we'll get 10 million questions.
I'm doing such a wonderful job. What can I tell you? Okay. So let me move on. Here's a book that I set up for someone. And let's look at it. By the way, when you're editing it, a lot of times it's good just to roll that up. Book with many chapters. This is actually mostly a remix. And I'm going to come back here and I'm going to open the remixer. Okay. Now you'll notice that it says chapter 1. How did I do that? Well, for this book, I selected auto number options that each chapter prefix will be chapter. I could use unit section. Up to load this. It changes the section. The canonical form that we use is for chapters is no prefix. Okay. Now, other options is some people insist of starting from 0. Okay, let me reload. You can start from 0. You can have prefixes for pages, and a page is a topic in MindTouch Speak. Do some other things here. Okay. Now, in this case, let's say what I want to do is go over to physics, and I'll talk about conceptual physics. That one. And I'm going to use this introduction. Well, I could put that there. And therefore, I want to, these topics here, well, I'm doing business, so I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. I can move this up here. Now, let me see, if I put it here, it goes underneath. But if I move it slightly outwards, sorry, it's a little bit fussy. So I can put it there, or I can put it in there. I'm not too worried about messing this up. When you move things over, you can either put it into the chapter, in which case, a page over, you can put it into the chapter, in which case it reflects at the bottom of the pages of that chapter, or you can put it there, in which case it renumbers. And if you do it a little bit wrong, it shows up as a chapter, but you really want it to be a page. I'm not paying too much attention here that this makes logical sense, just that it exists as it is. And again, when you're ready to save this, you've now rearranged things, you've added some material from another library, you have access to all the materials in all the libraries. So you can insert into your you can insert into social science, you can insert business stuff, you can insert geosciences, whatever you need. The entire library, all the libraries are insertable into the remixer. And again, you can go save to server. I'm not going to do that. It would take a while to go through all this, and it would mess up the book that I was building for someone else. Okay. Now, let me come back over here. to my demo book. Let's say I wanted to build a book that had a lot of external content or was completely external content. What I have here is I've just pulled down a table of contents from a microeconomics book. Let's not worry too much about it. So I'm going to go to the OER remixer again. And I'm going to just leave this here. So my first chapter is going to be what is economics. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to click on demo book. Justin showed you this, and I'm going to click on the plus. And there's a new page, but it has nothing in it. But I'd like to at least have the structure of the book there. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take this. I'm going to double click on new page. Whoops. Whoops. I don't know. I was working on something else during lunch. Why is this not copying? I don't know. Just see here. No, it just won't copy. All right. So I would paste in there. And I need a page. And then the next thing is the definition of economics. So I'm going. And now I'm going to add some pages in that chapter. And now I'm going to go to the social sciences bookshelves. Okay, there's the OpenStax book. And I'll put that there. And I'm going to basically build my book as a mix of empty chapters and content from LibreTexts that corresponds. And then I can come back later and I can cut and paste from other open sources or my own work, what is economics. And once I have this structure built, I would save it to server. And then save the book. So I've shown you 3 or 4 different ways to use the remixer. To create a book from content that's already in LibreText. In one LibreText, to create a book from content that's in multiple LibreTexts. To bring in content from external to LibreText, using cut and paste, using harvesting. If we come back here, okay, remixing with new original pages, remixing is making a setup for original materials. One of the things, maybe I can get a feel here, how many people here are in fields where if they write a book, it would contain a lot of formulaic material like equations, things that are difficult to cut and paste? How many of you could, it's simply text and images with maybe an occasional table? Okay, if it's mostly text and images, and you're willing to do a little work, it's just as easy to cut and paste it from whatever form it's in. It's best if you've got some HTML, but it can even work. It can even work on tables and things. If what you can do is you can transfer. If your problem is tables, you can transform it usually using Word or Adobe Acrobat or Google Docs. You can transform it into an HTML document, which will actually copy the images and the tables, and you can just harvest it yourself. We've got, you know how the Lincoln Tunnel was before there was congestion charges? There's a long list of things that need to be harvested. You could say you might be able in the long run to save yourself time and gain some experience by harvesting it yourself. Delmar's about to jump down my throat. Okay. That's pretty much all I want to say. So there's the harvested book. I'm going to tell you something about doing a remix. A remix that people pick up, and there are a lot of them. This is one that I was involved in. It's been around since about 2018. It has totally about 800,000 page views. And each of the page views has the name of each author on it and the institution. It builds an institutional brand. And it builds your own personal brand. Like, what's your H number? Well, my page view number is 800,000. And it can speak to broader impacts. Well, right now we are pretty much over 1 million page views. Anyhow, if you need to get a hold of me, I pretty much always come to the office hours, and there's my email. And I think with that, I will stop.